Aspects of seniority. One aspect of seniority is the effect it has on the bid system, or monthly bid lines. A schedule of all trips operating from a domicile within a 1-month period is issued to all of the flight attendants there. After receiving this schedule, the flight attendants bid on the lines of flying which they prefer. Bid lines for any given month usually are distributed during the preceding month and are awarded 3 to 4 days after the closing date for bids, which varies from the 10th to the 25th of each month, depending on the airline. The number of bid lines available is determined by the size of the base, domicile, and the level of flying activity. Seniority determines who gets what trips in these monthly bidding exercises. The terms line holder and reserve come into play. If a flight attendant is a line holder or block holder, the flight attendant holds a line of time, has a predetermined schedule, and will know ahead of time, for the entire month, which trips to count on flying. By contrast, a flight attendant on reserve will be on call a certain number of days a month, with the remainder being days off. Reserve or line holder status is determined by seniority and by your ability to bid for and be awarded this status. Only those with line holder status are awarded specific trips or lines of time. The trips for the group of line holders are planned in various sequences to allow days off, rest periods, and trips adding up to the required number of both duty hours and rest periods, with rests of appropriate duration, for each line holder. Usually, around 20% of the flight attendants at a base are assigned reserve status. These individuals form a pool of flight attendants on standby to fill in as needed when senior flight attendants are on vacation, leave of absence, or sick leave, or when senior flight attendants are delayed by weather or mechanical problems. Reserve can be a ready reserve or regular reserve. Ready reserve means getting ready and waiting at the airport in case you are needed for a flight. Regular reserve means that you wait at home, or, with some companies, carry a beeper around with you in order to respond to a call for your services on a flight. Depending on the company, bidding usually determines whether a reserve flight attendant is on ready or regular reserve. The term on call means being available to accept a trip on very short notice, in example, able to report at the airport within 1 to 2 hours after telephone notification from the crew scheduling department that you are needed. Obviously, all of the foregoing factors affect your scheduling flexibility. The more senior you are, the greater your ability to bid successfully for flexible scheduling. Jump seat privileges also are affected by seniority. A jump seat is a seat designated for use by extra flight attendants or by the company's other employees when they are traveling on a company or a business pass. Most airlines have jump seat privileges. Generally, these privileges are used either for personal trips or for deadheading. In example, catching a ride back to domicile when you do not have an on-duty trip back scheduled. Theoretically, riding the jump seat can allow a flight attendant to live in one city and fly out of another. However, the drawback is that jump seats are assigned on a seniority first-come, first-served basis. If you miss a trip because you could not get a jump seat to your domicile, disciplinary action may be taken, including dismissal. For a new flight attendant, therefore, riding the jump seat to domicile is not a viable option. The risk of being bumped in favor of a more senior employee is simply too great. Technical knowledge. You will need to know some fundamentals of aerodynamics and must be able to explain to a passenger what is going on at any given moment. Some passengers require a lot of reassuring, and their fears cannot be dispelled without knowledge. Then too, in an emergency, the pilot crew sometimes has to rely on information from a flight attendant, for example a report on whether or not an engine appears to have been lost based on a visual inspection through a cabin window. You will need to know time zones, air transport terminology, and the codes of airports, cities and airlines. Other technical knowledge involves the various kinds of equipment on board the aircraft having to do with the safety of passengers. Complications of the job. These include adverse weather conditions, a wide variety of passenger needs that must be met by flight attendants, and the range of in-flight emergencies that can arise. Inclement weather can cause flight delays and airport congestion, bumpy flights, and frightened passengers. In a worst-case scenario, it can lead to an emergency landing or a crash. Passenger needs range from comforting, to assuage the fear of flying, to assistance in boarding and performing other acts, in the case of handicapped passengers, to treatment for illness or injury, with an unimaginable array of needs within this range. Then there are other needs. Some passengers seem to require more attention than others. Some wish to be left alone. A flight attendant has to have great social sensitivity to be able to respond to all of these situations. The emergencies are almost as various as needs. They include illnesses, injuries, a woman going into labor, drunken or drug-induced misbehavior, individuals attempting to commit suicide and take everybody else on board along, forced landings because of engine failure or some other impairment, an endless list of possibilities. Flight attendants also have to deal with trying non-emergency situations, such as diversion of the flight to an alternate airport not bedeviled by a snowstorm, and the concomitant headaches of trying to calm passengers, and to deal with the logistics of getting passengers from the alternate airport either to their destinations or to connecting flights. You must have a calm, self-confident temperament to handle all of these situations. Summary. Pay is generally determined by a negotiated contract. A guaranteed base pay provides for a set number of flight hours per month. Seniority ranking in training is used to select observation trips and flight attendants' first domiciles through a bidding process. A domicile is a geographic location chosen by the company for the basing of flight attendants and pilots. The terms domicile, base, and base station are synonymous. A cabin crew will need to know time zones, air transport terminology, and the codes of airports, cities and airlines. Other technical knowledge needed in cabin crew career involves various kinds of equipment on board the aircraft having to do with the safety of passengers.